This story didn't scream for attention, but TH signs were always there, you just need to look closer. This is hidden witness. The knock came from inside my house. At 2:13 in the morning, someone knocked on my front door. The problem was, I was standing in the hallway, and I could hear the knocking coming from inside my house. Cinematic nighttime interior of a small American suburban house in Pennsylvania. A frightened young man standing alone in a dark hallway at exactly 2:13 a.m. Old digital clock glowing 2:13, basement door visible at the end of the hallway, 3 mysterious knocks implied. Moonlight through windows, deep shadows, realistic horror atmosphere, psychological thriller cinematography, no gore, 16:9. I never believed in haunted houses. I believed in bad wiring. Old plumbing. Settling wood. Neighbors making too much noise. Basically, if something couldn't be explained, I assumed there was a normal explanation. That changed when I moved into a small rental house outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It wasn't an old mansion. It wasn't isolated. There were houses on both sides of mine, a grocery store 5 minutes away, and a busy road at the end of the street. The house had 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a basement that smelled like wet concrete. The rent was suspiciously cheap. But I was 27, working nights, and desperate to save money. So I ignored the warning signs. The landlord gave me the keys on a Friday afternoon. Before leaving, he showed me around. Kitchen, living room, bedroom, basement. Then he paused at the basement door. He looked at me and said, "If you hear knocking down there, don't open the door." I laughed. I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. Then he simply said, "Old pipes," and walked away. At the time, I believed him. Small 2-story rental house in a quiet Pittsburgh suburb during a cold autumn evening. 2010's American neighborhood, young man carrying moving boxes toward the front door. Slightly unsettling atmosphere, cloudy sky, realistic cinematic photography, subtle horror mood, no supernatural creature visible, 16:9. For the first week, nothing happened. I unpacked, bought furniture, learned the neighborhood, started sleeping during the day because of my night shifts. Then on my 8th night, I woke up at exactly 2:13 a.m. 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up in bed. My first thought was that someone was at the front door. I checked my phone. 2:13. I walked into the hallway. The house was completely dark. Then I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time, it sounded like it was coming from downstairs. From the basement. I stood there for several seconds. Then I remembered what the landlord had said. If you hear knocking down there, don't open the door. So I went back to bed. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been pipes. Young man suddenly awake in his bedroom at 2:13 a.m., sitting on the edge of his bed and listening nervously, dark hallway visible through an open bedroom door, faint moonlight digital alarm clock showing 2:13 a.m., realistic American home interior, cinematic psychological horror, 16:9. The following night. It happened again. 2:13 a.m. 3 knocks. This time I was awake. I was watching television in the living room when I heard them. Knock, knock, knock. I turned off the TV. Nothing. Then, 3 more. But they weren't coming from the basement. They sounded like they were coming from behind me. I slowly turned around. There was a hallway leading toward the bedrooms. Empty. Then I noticed something. My bedroom door was open. I always slept with it closed. I walked toward it. Halfway down the hallway, I heard a sound. A quiet voice. My voice, coming from inside the bedroom. It whispered, "Don't go downstairs." I froze. I hadn't said those words, but the voice sounded exactly like me. Cliffhanger 1. I didn't sleep that night. And the next morning, I discovered something that made the situation much worse. There were 3 fresh scratches on the inside of my bedroom door. Not on the outside. The inside, as if someone had been trying to get out. Dark hallway inside an American suburban house at night. Bedroom door standing mysteriously open, terrified young man slowly approaching it. Deep shadows inside the bedroom, eerie moonlight, psychological suspense, realistic cinematic horror photography, no visible monster, 16. 9. Close-up of 3 fresh scratches on the inside surface of a wooden bedroom door, dim flashlight illuminating the marks, frightened atmosphere, realistic texture, cinematic horror style, no blood, 16. 9. I called the landlord. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. So I decided to investigate during daylight. At noon, I opened the basement door. The smell hit me immediately. Damp concrete. Dust. Something metallic. I turned on the light. The basement was mostly empty. An old furnace. A washing machine. Some wooden shelves. Nothing unusual. Then I saw the door. It was at the far end of the basement. Small. Painted white. I had never noticed it before. I walked toward it. There was no handle. Just a metal latch. And underneath the door, I saw light. Someone had put a light on in the room behind it. I stepped closer. Then I heard something. Breathing. Slow. Quiet. Coming from the other side. I backed away. I didn't open the door. Instead, I called the landlord again. This time, he answered. I asked him what was behind the door. There was a long silence. Then he said, "There's no room behind that door." I looked at it. Then what am I looking at? Another silence. Finally, he said, "Leave the basement," and hung up. Dark unfinished basement beneath an American suburban house, concrete walls, old furnace, dusty shelves, single flickering light bulb, mysterious small white door at the far end with light glowing underneath it. Young man standing cautiously near basement stairs, cinematic realistic horror, 16. 9. That evening I bought a cheap security camera. I placed it at the top of the basement stairs. If something was happening down there, I wanted proof. At 2:13 a.m. I heard the knocking. I didn't move. I watched the camera feed from my phone. The basement stairs were empty. Then, the basement door slowly opened. I stared at my phone. The door moved another few inches. Nobody was there. Then something appeared at the bottom of the stairs. A shadow. It looked like a person. Tall. Completely still. I couldn't see a face. I watched for almost 30 seconds. Then the shadow moved. It walked toward the camera. One step. Then another. Then another. I dropped my phone. When I picked it up, the camera feed was gone. No signal. Young man sitting nervously in a dark bedroom watching a security camera feed on his smartphone, screen showing an empty basement staircase and a tall, mysterious human-like shadow at the bottom. Digital clock showing 2:13 a.m., realistic psychological horror, cinematic lighting, no gore, 16. 9. The next morning I went to the neighbors. I asked the woman next door if she knew anything about the house. She stared at me, then asked, "Did you hear the knocking?" I didn't answer. She already knew. She told me that the previous tenant had moved out suddenly. No explanation. She also told me something the landlord hadn't mentioned. A man had disappeared from the house years earlier. His name was Daniel Mercer. He had rented the property in the late 1990s. One night, his neighbors heard shouting. Police came, but Daniel was gone. No body. No evidence. No explanation. The landlord told everyone Daniel had simply left. But the neighbor didn't believe that. She said there was one thing everyone remembered. For weeks after Daniel disappeared, People heard knocking from the basement. 3 knocks, every night, at exactly 2:13. Older female neighbor standing inside the doorway of an American suburban house during a cloudy afternoon, speaking seriously to a worried young man, nostalgic neighborhood visible behind her, mysterious expression, realistic cinematic documentary horror style. 16. 9. That afternoon, I went back downstairs. I stared at the mysterious door. Then I noticed something. The wall beside it looked newer than the rest of the basement. Different paint, different concrete. I knocked on it. Nothing. I knocked again. Knock, knock, knock. From the other side. Something knocked back. My blood ran cold. I stepped away. Then it happened again. 3 knocks. This time, I heard a voice. Very quietly. Please. I ran upstairs. I grabbed my keys. I was going to leave. But before I reached the front door, my phone rang. It was the landlord. I answered. He didn't say hello. He whispered, "Did you knock on the wall?" I said yes. He breathed heavily, then asked, "Did it answer?" I couldn't speak. He said, "Listen to me carefully. Whatever you hear next, don't answer." Cliffhanger 2. Then I heard it. Not from the phone. Not from the basement. From directly behind me. 3 knocks. Knock. 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 I slowly turned around. My front door was locked. Every window was closed. Nobody was inside. Except me. And something standing in the hallway. Young man standing inside a dark basement facing a strangely renovated concrete wall beside a small white door. His hand touching the wall after hearing mysterious knocking, flashlight illuminating the scene. Intense suspense, realistic psychological horror cinematography. 16. 9. Terrified young man frozen in a dark hallway, front door locked behind him. A tall, shadowy human figure standing silently at the opposite end of the hallway. Face hidden in darkness. Dramatic moonlight, realistic horror thriller, no gore. 16. 9. The figure was barely visible. A man, tall, thin. His head was lowered. He was standing completely still. I couldn't see his face. I didn't move. Neither did he. Then my phone slipped from my hand. It hit the floor. The figure raised its head. I ran. I opened the front door and sprinted across the street. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station. I called the police. 2 officers came with me. They searched the house. Every room. Every closet. The attic. The basement. Nothing. No person. No evidence. No broken windows. Nothing. Then one officer noticed the basement door. He asked, "What's behind this?" I told him what the landlord had said. The officer opened the latch. The room behind it was empty. Completely empty. But on the floor, there was an old mattress. And beside it, a pair of shoes, covered in dust. The officer looked at me. "These look old." I nodded. Then he found something else. A small metal box. Inside were dozens of photographs, all taken inside the house. Bedroom, kitchen, living room, basement, and in almost every photograph, there was someone standing somewhere in the background. A dark figure, tall, thin, mysterious man standing motionless inside a dark American house hallway, face obscured by shadow, frightened young man backing toward an open front door, dramatic lighting, intense psychological horror, realistic cinematic photography, no gore. 16. 9. The police took the photographs as evidence. I spent that night at a friend's apartment. The next morning, I called the landlord. I told him I was leaving. He didn't argue. He simply said, "I understand." Then I asked him one final question. Who was Daniel Mercer? The landlord didn't answer. I asked again. Finally, he said, Daniel was my brother. I froze. He continued. He disappeared in that house. I asked him why he had never told me. He said, because nobody believes what happened. Then he told me something I'll never forget. Daniel hadn't disappeared randomly. He had called him at 2:13 a.m. on the night he vanished. Daniel was terrified. He kept saying someone was knocking on the basement wall. Then the phone went silent. The landlord went to the house. But Daniel was gone. The basement door was locked from the outside. Old metal evidence box on a police investigation desk. Dozens of mysterious photographs scattered around it. Photographs showing different rooms inside the same house. One dark human silhouette appearing in the background of several photographs. Police flashlight and case files. Realistic crime investigation atmosphere. Cinematic 16:9. I thought that was the end. I moved out 2 days later. I never went back. 3 months passed. Then one evening, I received an email from the police department. They had finished examining the old security footage from my house. They found something. A frame hidden inside the corrupted recording. One image. Just one. It showed the basement. The mysterious door. And standing in front of it was me. Except, I wasn't in the basement. I was asleep upstairs. The timestamp was 2:13 a.m. And the figure standing beside the door was wearing my clothes. But the worst part wasn't the photograph. It was the final frame. The figure was looking directly at the camera. And written across the wall behind it were 4 words. You left me here. Old security camera footage displayed on a police computer monitor, timestamp 2:13 a.m., basement door visible on screen with a mysterious figure wearing the protagonist's clothes standing nearby. Investigators examining the footage in a dark room, realistic cinematic psychological horror, 16:9. Dark basement wall with 4 unsettling words scratched into the surface. You left me here. Mysterious figure standing in the shadows beside the door, flashlight beam cutting through darkness, cinematic horror, no blood, realistic texture, 16:9. I don't know what happened in that house. I don't know who Daniel really saw that night. And I definitely don't know how a camera captured something that looked exactly like me. While I was asleep upstairs, the police never found anyone. The landlord eventually sold the property. And as far as I know, nobody lives there anymore. But there's one thing I still haven't told you. Last month, I received another email. No subject, no message, just one attachment. A photograph. It was a picture of my old bedroom, taken from the corner of the room, the exact place where I used to sleep. And underneath the photograph was a timestamp, 2:13 a.m. I haven't opened another email since, because I already know what I'm afraid I'll see. Someone standing behind my bed, watching me sleep. And if you ever hear 3 knocks in your house at exactly 2:13 in the morning, don't assume they're coming from the front door. Because sometimes, the person knocking isn't outside. They're already inside. Dark bedroom at 2:13 a.m., empty bed in foreground, camera positioned from the corner of the room as if someone is secretly watching, faint silhouette standing behind the bed, moonlight through curtains, eerie, quiet atmosphere, realistic psychological horror movie cinematography, no gore, 16:9. If this story kept you looking over your shoulder, like this video, share it with someone who loves scary stories, and subscribe to Hidden Witness. Because some stories are forgotten, some mysteries are buried, but every mystery leaves behind a hidden witness. Thanks for watching. If you saw what others missed, join the Hidden Witness. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the shadows.